Hello everyone, let's start with the second lecture on GUI in Python. In the previous video, in the previous lecture, we have discussed that in order to create a graphical user interface in Python, we need the tkinter module, which is the module used for graphical user interface. And the first thing which we need to do is we need to create a window using the tool tkinter module, and there is a function tk, and using that you can create a window. And in order to sustain the window, we need to execute the statement window.main loop, which will sustain the window, will keep the window so that the user can interact with the window. And by default, there will be a title on the window, and the default title can be changed by using the title function of the window. Now we'll discuss some more components. After creating the window, we can put on certain components onto the window. But before putting some component onto the window, let's discuss few more function of window class. Let's say, as in the last class, we have also discussed one more function. If you remember, we have discussed the min size. Min size was used basically when we run the program. Let's just comment this and check the program. Say if I execute this program, say GUI, and if you see the size of the window, when we execute the program, the size of the window is like this, it's minimum. And when the components will be displayed, it would be even less, means it will only display that portion of the window which is required by the component to be displayed. But if you want that at the starting, the window should have a minimum size, that a size which is visible or little better to see. Say if I have to set a dimension for my window, I can use the min size function. So this will set a minimum dimension which will be displayed or will be used by the window whenever it will be displayed. Say I will use the dimension 500 by 500. So if I run this program now, you can check now the window when appears is having a better dimension. In same way, instead of using min size, we can also use, there is a function known as geometry, which also sets the dimension of the window. Say window dot geometry, and here you can also set the dimension. Only difference is the format in which the dimension is given. In double quote, we give the dimension x dimension cross y dimension, that is width comma y, that is height. So if it suggests 700 by say 500, so if I run the program now, you can check this time the dimension of the window is 700 by width and 500 by height. So using geometry function also we can set the dimension for our window. Now one more thing is, if you don't want the window to be resizable, if you run the program again, say this is the window when it is displayed before the user, you can see that I can resize the window still I can increase the width and height of the window like this by using the mouse. So if you don't want the user to be able to resize the window and should be in the same dimension throughout the program, you can use window.resizable function, and in this we can pass two arguments. First argument is about the resizing of the width, whereas the second is the resizing of the height. If I pass false to both the part, that means neither the width nor the height can be resized. If you want to check, let's run the program again. Now you can check the window is not resizable. Even if I am trying to resize the window, it's not able to, we are not able to resize the window. Let's check that I want to resize the window width wise, but I don't want to change the height. So in that case, I have given true in the first and false in the second. So let's run the program and check whether I am able to resize the width. Yes, now we can resize the width, but still, although the resize cursor is available, but we are not able to resize the height. And same way, you can do the vice versa. I can make the width unchangeable and can make the height changeable by setting it as true. Now let's run the program. This time the width won't be, look, even the resizable cursor is available, but we are not able to resize the width, but we can resize the height. So after knowing these functions about the window, Let's jump on to our first component. The first component which we are going to discuss is the label component. If you are not aware of the label component, if you have ever came across a GUI interface, like if you are filling a form online, you have seen that there are certain text field displayed, and before the text field certain text has been displayed to help you to understand what is the purpose of the given text field. So if I have put a name text before a text field, that means you should be aware that the following text field has been meant to enter your name. Similarly, if I have a text field and a text before that is displaying age or mobile or whatever, so this text is explaining to us or helping the user to understand that the following field is meant for entering the age. So labels are those components which help us to understand the purpose of a given component. Not only text field, it can be applicable with other component also. So let's start with the label component. How do we create a label component? Say my label is named as my label is equal to, in the TK module I do have a label function, and using this label function I can create a label. So let's check this. I have created my label. The name of the label is my label, and the function which I have used to create the label is label function in the TK module. Okay, now let's run the program and check. No, there is no label seen or visible on the screen. Why it is so? It is because maybe I haven't given any text. So let's put some text in my label, say sample label, and now let's run the program again and check. Still the label is not visible. Do you know why? Because I have created the label but I haven't attached the label with my window. So whenever you create a component, you need to attach that component or fix that component onto the window by using the pack function. So now I am going to fix my label onto my window using pack function. So see, now I have packed or fixed my label onto my window. Let's run the program again. Now you can see that you will find this sample label on the top of the window. That means my label is now getting displayed. But you see that there is no formatting applied on that label. Let's apply some formatting. Along with the label, we can apply the background color using BG. Let's say red as the background, and FG is used for the foreground. Say white as the foreground. We need to use the single quote, so say white as the foreground. So let's now check whether these formatting, now we have only applied the foreground and background color onto my label. Now go and check. Let's go and check the label. Yes, you can see now the label is displayed with a red background and a white foreground. That is, the text has been displayed in the white color. Can we change the font size of this? Yes, you can even change the font of the text, like say I want to display Times New Roman as the text, and say size, the size should be 30, and I want to apply bold style onto the text. Now let's check the result. That means what I have done, I have, let me change the line so that the entire line is visible. You can check, I have applied text property, that is, this text will be displayed on my label with background as red, with foreground as white, and I have even applied certain font on my content of the label, that is Times New Roman 30 and bold. Let's check now. Yes, you can check now the content of the label has been displayed in a specific font with the font size 30, and bold is also applied to the content. Now after this, observe one more thing. When I run the program, my label is always displayed on the top of my window. Can I change this? Yes, you can change this. While packing the component, you can use the side argument, and using this you can change the side. Like I can change the label from top to left, right, or bottom of the page. Let's see. Now you can check that label is being displayed on the left side of the window. Now let's change it to bottom. Yes, now check whether it is in the bottom. Yes, now the label is getting displayed on the bottom, and similarly you can display it on the right. Let me again put it back on the left side, because top is the default argument. Even if you don't pass the side, it will be on the default. Now I will check the fill argument. Actually, fill argument is basically used when you will check when I run the program. Let's remove this first. If I run the program, you can say check that the label is only occupying, even if I am resizing the window, the label is only occupying that much space which is required by the content, whereas the rest of the space are unused. So if you want the component to be visible or to expand itself and fill the entire area of the window, if it's the single component, how can we do so? You can use the fill argument, and in the fill argument you can pass the following thing: x, y, and both. X means you want the component to fill the horizontal, that is the x axis of the C, but it's not still filling it. X means what I was trying to tell, that x, fill x means this component, and fill y means the vertical side, vertical space, and both means both this x as well as y. But still I have checked that even after applying the fill property, the component that is label is not filling my space. It is because there is one more attribute known as expand. So what we have to do, we have to make it true, then only my component will start expanding. Now let's run the program. Now you can see, as we have said that fill x, now my component is filling the x axis, that is the horizontal. Now if I extend the window, you can see as I am extending, the component is also extending itself, or it's filling the x, that is horizontal space available. Now if I change this fill into y, and if I run the program now, you can check now it's filling the vertical space. Now if I increase the height of my component, you can find it's also, the component is also expanding with the size of the window. Now if I say both means both x axis and y axis. Now you can see that my component is filling the entire window, and if I am extending or expanding my window, you can see my component is also expanding in both the direction, vertical as well as horizontal. So these are the following attributes which can be used with label component, like text to display the text, background color, foreground color, font. And when we pack the component, we can use the following component to decide the side as well as expansion of the component. So for time being, I have removed all that expansion, and let's make a simple label, that is label with the following detail, that is text, background, foreground, and font. But do you know one more thing? Can we modify certain attribute of the component even after the creation? For example, when I am creating my label, I have assigned certain text, certain background, but after the creation of the label, can I change that? Yes, you can do. For example, if my label is created, still I want to change the text property. For that, for example, instead of sample label, I want to display certain text like name or phone number or mobile number. So how can I edit any of the attribute of a specific component after its creation? By using the config function. There is a config function. Using this config function, you can modify anything, like any of the attribute. Let's say text, instead of sample, I want to say full name as the content for the label, and even I can change the background color from red to say green, as it is suggesting, let it be green, and let the foreground color be, instead of white, let it be black. Oh, fine. So using config function, even once the component is created, you can modify the attribute of the component. So if I comment this for time being and once execute this program, what are the attributes? The sample label is the text, background is red, and the color is white. Now if I uncomment this and again run the program, this time the contents will be changed. The text will be changed into full name, the background color should be green, and the foreground color should be black. Let's run this. Now you can check the content text has been changed, background as well as foreground color has been changed. So after the creation of the any component, you can change the attribute by using the config function, You can change any of the attribute of the component. Now let's have one more component into my window, that is button component. So let me name it as my button, and let's create a button with tk module dot button class. So there is a button class. Here also I will pass the text, say click me or simply click, and here you can specify other attributes. We will be discussing more attributes later on. For time being, let's just check whether this component is displayed. Let me pack it also, as I have explained in the first component label, that after the component is created you need to pack it with your window, otherwise it won't be displayed. Even if I comment this and if I run the program, even my button is created, I won't be able to see. So once I pack the component with the window, then only that particular component will be visible. Now you can check, this is the click window, although nothing will happen because we haven't added any functionality to the button. And here also you can apply certain font and all. So let's copy this and let's apply the font. Say instead of 30, let me have 20, and instead of bold, let me have italics. Fine. Now run the program again. No, italics, I think italic is fine. Let's run the program again. So this time the button is having certain font with italic text. Click. Now to make the button more beautiful, let have some background also. Set the background be, say, brown. Brown will be fine, and foreground should be, FG should be yellow. Yellow will be visible more in the, I think, in the orange brown background. So now run the now it's fine. This is my button, this is my label. Now let's check how to add the functionality to the button. Let me change the line, this line also, so that the text should be visible. It's going beyond the window. Okay, now what we are going to do, we are going to add certain functionality to this button. So what functionality are we going to add? Let me say that when I click on this button, I would like to do some changes on this label. Say what I am going to do, I am going to display, say, some text on this, say any text, say sample text. So it's already sample. Hello world should be displayed on the label when I click on this button, so that I can show you how the action could be added with the button. And in order to add certain action to the button, we have a command argument. Okay, and in the command argument you need to pass the name of the function which will be executed when this button will be clicked, say num_func. Although we haven't defined any function, say demo is the name of the function, but in order to execute this we need to define some function, def, say demo, and in this function what we are going to do, on the click of the function we need to modify the text of this label which is named as my label. So we have already discussed that how can we modify the attribute of any component using config function. So we will be using config function. Very good. We need to change the text of the label into hello world when we click on this button. So this is the function demo, and this has been called in the command attribute of the function of the button. Now when we'll click this button, this action will be taken, that is changing the text on the label. Now let's run the program. When we run the program, the label is being displayed with the sample label and the button is there with the click text. Now if I click, you can see the click has initiated the action and changed or modified the text attribute of this label component into hello world. I hope this is clear to everyone. I hope this is clear that using these two components. So in this lecture we have discussed my label and the button component, and we have discussed the pack function to add the component to the window, and in the pack component we have also discussed many of the attribute. One last thing which I would like to discuss is, if you have checked that we have passed the font in the label, can't we define the font separately and could pass that into the label? Yes, you can even define the font separately, but for that you need to import something. Say import, what we have to import, say from tkinter dot font import asterisk or import font. No, let's completely install. So from the tkinter dot font, actually there in the tkinter module we do have the font module. From there we are importing everything. And now what we are going to do is, instead of defining the font inside the label, I would be first defining the font, and then we will be declaring the, we will be passing that font to the this, say what is this, f is equal to font, and in the font you can pass family, size and weight. Okay, weight is used for bold, and if you have to pass the italic, to pass the italic in the font, we can change that also using slant attribute. In this I can even pass slant, and in the slant I can pass italic, so it will be bold as well as italic. So what we have done, using this font module which I have imported, I have separately defined what is the module, tkinter dot font. Actually this font module is in the tkinter, and asterisk means I have imported everything from that module. Now what we have done is, we have declared a font object with the following argument. This time the family, font family is Arial, size is 20, the style bold as well as italic. For bold we use the weight or attribute, and for italic we have used the slant attribute. And then now what we are going to do is, we are not defining the font here. Now what we are going to do, we are going to apply that F font which we have defined in the program into my label. Let's check whether this is applied on the label or not. Now you can check, this time the font is Arial and the size has been reduced to 20, and both bold and italic has been applied on this label. I hope this is clear to everyone. So this is all for this video. In the next video we are going to discuss about some other components. So thank you for watching the video, and please give your valuable feedback in the comment section after watching the video. Thank you.